7 life lessons that took me 10 years to learn. Morning, secret to rewire your mind. You have been alive long enough to know that time does not negotiate. It does not bargain with your tiredness, your grief, or your excuses. The sun came up this morning, the same way it always does, completely indifferent to whether you were ready for it. And somewhere deep inside, you already sensed the truth that most people spend decades running from. The life you are living right now is the life you have chosen, not through one single dramatic moment, but through 1,000 quiet mornings where you either rose with purpose or surrendered to habit. Think about that for a second. The friends who disappeared, the career that crumbled when you thought it was solid ground, the promises that turned to dust. None of it waited for you to be prepared. The world kept spinning, and the only question that ever mattered was whether you would spin with it or get left standing still. Now, if you are over 40, you carry something younger people do not. You carry the weight of knowing what regret actually tastes like. It visits you in those first fragile seconds after waking, whispering about roads not taken and words left unspoken. But regret is only poison when you swallow it and sit still. The moment you stand up and move, it transforms into something rare. It becomes wisdom. Every scar on your soul is a lesson. Every failure carved something useful into your bones. And every single morning offers you a fresh invitation to stop repeating what broke you and start building what will heal you. That is exactly what today's video is about. 7 life lessons that took me 10 years of stumbling, falling, and slowly finding my way to understand. 7 truths about how your mornings quietly shape everything, your mind, your direction, your entire future. I call it the morning secret to rewind your mind, because the real transformation does not begin with some grand external event. It begins in those small, sacred minutes before the noise of the world rushes in. You will hear why waiting for the perfect moment is the most dangerous trap of all. Why protecting your dreams in silence gives them the strength to survive. Why the voices you listen to will either build you up or quietly tear you apart. And why consistency, not talent, is the true currency of a meaningful life. Nobody else is coming to rescue you. That is not a tragedy. That is your greatest power. The fact that your future sits entirely in your own hands means no one can take it from you either. So stay with me until the very end of this video, because each lesson builds on the one before it, and the final truth ties everything together in a way that will shift how you see tomorrow morning. If any of this resonates with you, subscribe so we can walk this road together. And right now, drop a comment that says, "Today I choose to wake up on purpose." Let those words be your first act of commitment. Your life is still yours to shape. Let me show you how. Lesson 1: time owes you nothing. Of all the lies you have ever told yourself, the most destructive one sounds completely harmless. I still have time. You whisper it when you put off the difficult conversation. You repeat it when you delay the dream that has been sitting in your chest for years. You cling to it every morning when the alarm rings, and you choose comfort over commitment, but deep down in a place you rarely visit. Honestly, you already know the truth. Time is not yours to keep. It never was. The ancient Stoic Seneca once wrote to his friend Lucilius, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." Notice what he did not say. He did not say life is brief. He said you are the one throwing it away, and that distinction changes everything. Because if life were simply short, you could blame fate. But if you are the one wasting it, then the responsibility falls squarely on your own shoulders. That is uncomfortable to hear at 20. At 40, 50, or 60, it becomes almost unbearable, because by now, you have proof. You can look back and see the years that slipped through your fingers while you were busy planning to begin. Consider what is happening right now in this very moment while you are watching this video. Somewhere in the world, a person your age is taking the first terrifying step toward the very thing you keep postponing. Someone with fewer resources, less education, and more obstacles than you is building the life you only daydream about during your commute. The world did not pause to wait for their courage. It will not pause for yours either. Every sunrise brings a planet already spinning at full speed, and the only real question is whether you will match its rhythm or watch it pull further and further away. You have felt this tension before, that quiet ache on Sunday evenings, that strange restlessness when you see someone else accomplish what you know you are capable of. That is not jealousy. That is your unlived life knocking on the walls of your consciousness, asking why you keep ignoring it. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets, until one day it stops knocking altogether. That silence is far worse than the noise, because it means something inside you has given up. But you are still here. You are still listening, which tells me that part of you has not surrendered yet. So let me ask you something that matters more than any motivational phrase ever could. What if this morning was not just another morning? What if it was the precise turning point your future self has been praying for? Would you still reach for your phone and lose the first hour to scrolling? Would you still bargain with yourself, promising to start fresh next Monday? Or would you finally sit up, plant your feet on the floor, and decide that today the pattern breaks? The people you admire, the ones who seem to carry an uncommon fire in their eyes, did not get there through talent alone. What separates them from the crowd is something far simpler and far more difficult. They stopped negotiating with time. They stopped treating each morning like a dress rehearsal for some future performance that never arrives. They understood that every day spent waiting is a day permanently lost, and they refused to let another one disappear. Your mornings are not neutral. They are not empty containers waiting to be filled at random. Each one is a doorway, and the way you walk through it determines the shape of everything that follows. Begin with intention, and the hours ahead bend toward purpose. Begin with avoidance, and the entire day drifts like a boat with no anchor. So tomorrow, when your eyes open and the world is still quiet, try something different before the noise floods in, before obligations start pulling at you from every direction. Sit with yourself for just 60 seconds. Breathe and say these words as if your whole future depends on them, because in a very real sense, it does. Time owes me nothing. Today, I earn my life. Carry that sentence with you, not as a slogan, but as a commitment etched into the way you move through every waking hour, because the river of time will keep flowing whether you step into it or stand frozen on the bank. And you have stood on that bank long enough. Lesson 2. You must become your own first priority. Nobody wants to hear this, but it needs to be said. If you collapse tomorrow, the world would grieve for a moment and then carry on without you. Your employer would post your position within weeks. Your responsibilities would quietly shift to someone else's shoulders. Even the people who love you most deeply would, with time, learn to live in the space you left behind. That is not cruelty. That is simply how life operates. And once you truly absorb that reality, something shifts inside you. You stop treating yourself as an afterthought. You begin to understand that the single most important investment you will ever make is the one you make in your own body, your own mind, your own wholeness. Yet how many years have you spent doing the opposite, running on 4 hours of sleep as though exhaustion were a badge of honor, skipping meals because the deadline mattered more than your hunger, silencing that quiet inner voice that kept telling you to slow down, to breathe, to rest. You convinced yourself that grinding until you broke was noble, that suffering proved your dedication. But suffering without purpose is not sacrifice. It is a slow and voluntary unraveling of the very person your family, your dreams, and your future depend upon. The Stoic teacher, Musonius Rufus, put it plainly when he said that caring for the body is required so that the soul might have a worthy instrument through which to act. What he understood was something most of us forget. Your body is not separate from your purpose. It is the vehicle that carries your purpose into the world. When that vehicle breaks down on the side of the road, every passenger inside your ambitions, your relationships, your capacity to show up for the people who need you, all of them are stranded. So what does it actually look like to put yourself first? It begins in those earliest hours of the morning before the demands of the day come flooding in. Picture 2 different versions of yourself waking up at the same time tomorrow. One version reaches immediately for the phone, plunging headfirst into a stream of other people's highlight reels. absorbing comparison and anxiety before both feet have even touched the floor. The other version sits up slowly, drinks a glass of water, moves the body, gently takes 10 quiet breaths, and sets a single clear intention for the day ahead. Both people will face the same storms by noon, but only one of them built a shelter before the rain arrived. The small rituals are what matter most precisely because they seem so unremarkable. Choosing real food over convenience, choosing a walk over another hour on the couch, choosing sleep over the blue glow of a screen at midnight. None of these acts will make headlines, but stacked together morning after morning, they quietly construct something extraordinary. They build a human being who can withstand pressure instead of crumbling under it. And let me dismantle the most common excuse right now, the belief that prioritizing yourself is selfish. Turn that idea around and examine it from the other side. When you neglect your health and your mind finally buckles under the weight, who pays the price? Your children, your partner, your closest friends. The people counting on your strength suddenly find themselves carrying a person who refused to carry himself. Neglect is the truly selfish act because its consequences always spill onto the ones you claim to love most. Musonius also taught his students that no one can call themselves disciplined if they abuse the very body entrusted to them. True discipline is not measured by how much punishment you can absorb. It is measured by how wisely you preserve your energy so that it serves you across decades, not just through a single desperate sprint. Every morning presents you with a question that most people ignore until a crisis forces them to answer it. What can I do in the next hour to make myself stronger, clearer, more whole? Do not wait for the heart scare, the diagnosis, or the collapse to finally take that question seriously. Start tomorrow. Before the world asks anything of you, give something to yourself first. Water movement, stillness, intention. These are not luxuries reserved for people with easy lives. They are necessities for anyone determined to build a life worth living. Because when you are strong, everything you touch grows stronger with you. And when you crumble, everything you built begins to crumble too. Carry this with you into every morning from now on. I will take care of myself first because everything I love depends on the person I become. Lesson 3. Stop carrying yesterday and start walking toward tomorrow. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, when the house is silent and sleep refuses to come, a voice begins speaking inside your head. It reminds you of the chance you did not take. It replays the conversation where you said the wrong thing. It shows you in vivid detail the version of your life that could have existed if only you had chosen differently 10 or 20 years ago. You know this voice well. You have been listening to it for longer than you care to admit. And every time you obey it, every time you let it pull you back into a moment that no longer exists, you lose a little more of the morning that is waiting for you right now. That voice has a name. It is called regret. And it is one of the most deceptive forces in the human soul because it disguises itself as wisdom. It pretends to be teaching you something when in truth it is only punishing you. Real wisdom looks backward, briefly extracts what is useful, and then faces forward. Regret, on the other hand, chains you to a closed door and insists you keep knocking on it, even though no one will ever answer. The Stoic philosopher Chrysippus taught that a wise person does not grieve over what is absent, but finds joy in what is present. Notice the simplicity of that instruction. He did not say, forget your past. He did not say, pretend the pain never happened. He said, stop living inside it. The past has already spent every coin it had to offer. Whatever lessons existed in your failures, they were deposited into your character the moment they occurred. You do not need to keep reopening the wound to receive the medicine. The medicine is already inside you. But regret does something even more dangerous than causing pain. It steals your attention from the only place where change is actually possible, which is right here, right now, this very morning. Imagine walking down a crowded street with your head turned completely backward. You would stumble into every obstacle, miss every open door, collide with every opportunity standing directly in your path. That is precisely what happens when you wake up each day focused on what went wrong instead of what could still go right. The present becomes invisible and the future slowly dissolves into just another thing you failed to reach. So how do you break free from this pattern? The first step is the hardest and also the most liberating. You must forgive the person you used to be. That younger version of you made decisions with limited understanding, under pressures you may have already forgotten, carrying fears that felt enormous at the time. Judging that person by what you know today is like blaming a child for not having the vocabulary of an adult. It is unfair and, more importantly, it is inaccurate. You were doing the best your awareness allowed. Accept that, and a weight you have been dragging for years will begin to lift. The second step is motion. Not grand dramatic motion, just one small act of forward movement. If you spent years ignoring your health, lace up your shoes this afternoon and walk for 15 minutes. If you abandoned a creative passion decades ago, pick up the pen or the instrument tonight for just 10 minutes. Regret cannot survive in the presence of progress. The moment you prove to yourself that tomorrow can look different from yesterday, the grip of the past begins to loosen. And the third step might be the most important of all. Recognize that the person lying awake at 3 in the morning, tormented by old mistakes, is not the same person who made them. The very fact that those choices haunt you is evidence of how much you have evolved. Your younger self could not feel that remorse because your younger self had not yet grown enough to see the error. So do not punish the person you have become for the blindness of the person you once were. Honor your transformation by using it. Seneca once urged a friend to count each day as a separate life, a complete existence unto itself. What a powerful way to greet a morning. Yesterday's regrets belong to a life that has already ended. This morning, you are born again with fresh hours and untouched potential. The only question is whether you will spend those hours staring at a gravestone or planting new seeds in open soil. Tomorrow, when that familiar voice begins its midnight sermon about your past, answer it calmly and firmly. I heard you. I learned from you. And now I'm walking forward. Write this down where you can see it every morning. I am not defined by what I lost. I am shaped by what I choose to build next. Lesson 4. Either you create your own vision or you spend your life serving someone else's. Look at every object surrounding you right now. The device in your hand, the chair beneath you, the brand on your coffee cup, the roof over your head. Each one of these began as a spark inside another person's imagination. Somebody chose to wake up early and nurture that spark while the rest of the world stayed comfortable. Somebody endured the doubt, the exhaustion, the fear of failure, and kept building anyway. The only difference between those people and you is not intelligence or luck. It is the decision they made with their mornings. And that is the question you must sit with honestly. When your eyes open each day, whose blueprint are you following? If the answer is always someone else's, then a quiet erosion is happening inside you that most people do not notice until decades have passed. You pour your best energy into another person's deadlines, another person's quarterly targets, another person's name on the building. Meanwhile, the thing you were actually born to create sits folded in a drawer somewhere in your chest, untouched, gathering years of dust. Now let me be clear, working within someone else's structure is not inherently wrong. Seasons of employment teach discipline, sharpen skills, and provide the stability needed to sustain a household. The Stoic hierarchies describe life as a series of expanding circles of responsibility, beginning with the self and reaching outward to family, community, and beyond. Serving others has genuine value, but when service to others completely replaces service to your own calling, you have abandoned the innermost circle. You have neglected the very core from which all meaningful contribution flows. What does it take to reclaim that core? Far less than you imagine. You do not need to resign tomorrow or gamble your family's security on a reckless leap. You need 20 minutes before dawn. You need one page written before the household wakes. You need a single phone call made during your lunch break, one small enrollment completed after the children fall asleep. The magnitude of each step matters far less than the fact that you took it. Because motion, even tiny motion, sends a signal deep into your psyche that your vision still matters, that you have not surrendered it entirely. Mornings hold a particular magic for this work. In those still unhurried minutes before obligations flood in, You possess a window that belongs to no employer, no client, no external demand. Most people sacrifice this window to the glow of a screen, consuming content created by those who refuse to sacrifice their own mornings. Builders operate differently. They treat that early silence as sacred ground, where seeds get planted long before the noise arrives. And yes, the planting is hard. Doubt will visit, fatigue will test you. Progress will feel invisible for stretches that seem unbearable, but measure that difficulty against the alternative. Imagine reaching 60 and realizing that every productive hour of your adult life was invested in someone else's name, someone else's legacy, someone else's fulfillment. That recognition carries a weight no achievement on another person's behalf can lift. So ask yourself this when tomorrow begins: whose future am I feeding today? If the honest answer unsettles you, then carve out even the smallest offering of time for the vision that still lives inside you. One morning at a time, one modest step at a time, build what is yours. I choose to honor my own calling before the world asks me to honor someone else's. Lesson 5. Let your actions speak and keep your victories close. We live in an age that confuses announcement with accomplishment. Scroll through any feed for 30 seconds and you will find people broadcasting intentions they have not yet begun to fulfill, celebrating milestones they have not yet reached, performing ambition for an audience instead of actually living it. The modern world rewards whoever shouts the loudest. But volume and value are not the same thing, and the person making the most noise is rarely the one doing the most meaningful work. Consider what happens the moment you share a fragile new idea with the world. You have barely begun shaping it, barely taken the first uncertain step, and already a dozen voices rush in with their opinions. Some carry genuine concern, others carry something darker, a quiet discomfort triggered by watching you attempt what they never dared to try. The words sound supportive on the surface. Are you really sure about this? What happens if it falls apart? That seems like a huge risk. But underneath those words do something precise and destructive. They plant hesitation exactly where conviction needs to grow. And once hesitation takes root in your mind, the dream begins to wither before it ever had a fair chance to bloom. The Stoic Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, never intended for anyone else to read, that the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding yourself in the ranks of the insane. He understood something fundamental about the relationship between solitude and clarity. When you build in silence, you remove the distortion that other people's reactions create. You stop measuring your progress by applause and start measuring it by genuine forward motion. Your energy stays focused on the craft instead of leaking out through the constant need for validation. Think of your ambitions the way a gardener thinks of newly planted seeds. Buried beneath the soil, invisible to passersby, those seeds are doing their most critical work in total darkness. Roots are stretching downward, anchoring themselves, gathering strength. A gardener who digs up the seed every few days to show the neighbors will never harvest anything. Patience and privacy are what allow growth to happen undisturbed. Your dreams operate by the same principle. The quieter you keep them during their most vulnerable stage, the deeper their roots will reach. Celebrating in private follows the same logic. When you broadcast a victory too eagerly, two things tend to happen. First, you attract attention from people whose admiration is laced with envy, and envy has a way of corroding even the strongest friendships. Second, and perhaps more dangerously, the rush of external praise tricks your brain into feeling satisfied before the real work is finished. Applause creates a chemical illusion of completion. You feel as though you have arrived when you have only just departed. Quiet celebration, on the other hand, keeps the fire burning. It lets you savor the win without losing the hunger that produced it. This does not mean you must become a hermit who never shares anything with anyone. Isolation is not the goal. Intentionality is. Before you open your mouth or type that post, pause long enough to ask one honest question. Am I sharing this because it genuinely serves my growth, or because my ego is hungry for recognition? If the answer points toward ego, close your mouth and return to the work. Let the results accumulate in silence until they become so undeniable that no one's skepticism can diminish them. At that point, you will not need to announce anything. The evidence will speak with a voice far more convincing than any premature declaration ever could. Tomorrow morning, as you sit with your intentions for the day, carry this quietly inside you. My silence protects what matters most. My discipline speaks louder than any words. And when the harvest finally comes, it will announce itself. Guard your dreams the way you would guard something irreplaceable, because that is exactly what they are. Lesson 6. Be fiercely selective about who gets to influence your mind. A question worth sitting with this morning. How many of the beliefs currently shaping your life actually belong to you? Not the ones you inherited from a worried parent, absorbed from a pessimistic colleague, or downloaded unconsciously from strangers arguing on the internet. Your beliefs. The ones you arrived at through your own experience, your own reflection, your own quiet knowing. If you are honest with yourself, the number might be smaller than you expect, because from the moment you were born, the world has been pouring its opinions into you, and most of those opinions came from people who were themselves lost, afraid, or simply repeating what someone else once told them. That is the invisible danger of living without a filter. You share a budding idea with a friend, and their eyebrows rise with skepticism. You mention a new direction to a family member, and their voice tightens with fear. They mistake for wisdom. You confide a bold ambition to a coworker, and they calmly list every reason it will collapse. None of these people intend to harm you. Most genuinely believe they are helping, but their counsel flows from their own limitations, not from any understanding of your capacity. And bit by bit, conversation after conversation, you trim your vision down until it fits comfortably into the small frame of their imagination. The Stoic Epictetus addressed this directly when he told his students that if you wish to improve, you must be content to appear foolish and stupid in the eyes of those who do not understand your path. Notice what he did not say. He did not say, ignore everyone. He said, accept that the people who cannot see where you are heading will naturally question your direction. Their confusion is not evidence that you are wrong. It is evidence that your journey is yours and not theirs. So the practice becomes one of deliberate selection. Ask yourself a simple but ruthless question about every voice that reaches your ear. Does this person embody the results I am striving toward? Would you seek financial guidance from someone buried under their own debt? Would you accept counsel on vitality from a person who neglects their own body? Would you let someone who has never risked anything meaningful talk you out of taking a chance? When you frame it that plainly, the answer becomes obvious. Yet most people never frame it that way. They accept advice based on proximity and volume rather than credibility and lived experience. Filtering your circle does not require hostility. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to let their fears govern your choices. Boundaries are not walls built from resentment. They are gates built from self-respect. You decide who enters what they carry and how long they stay. Meanwhile, the most important voice in your entire life should be the one that speaks from within. Each morning, before the noise floods in, sit quietly and ask yourself what you truly want. What direction feels aligned with your deepest sense of purpose? Trust the answer that rises even when it contradicts everything the crowd is shouting. When tomorrow begins and the chorus of outside opinions starts competing for your attention, hold this close. I choose my teachers by the lives they live, not the volume of their words, and the voice I trust most is my own. Lesson 7. Small disciplines repeated daily will outweigh every excuse you have ever made. Not a single person who ever built something meaningful did it in one dramatic burst. Not one. The book that changed your life was written one slow page at a time. The body you admire in someone your age was sculpted through thousands of unremarkable mornings in a quiet gym. The savings account that granted someone else freedom grew from deposits so small they barely seemed worth making. Greatness real, lasting. Greatness is not a lightning strike. It is rainfall, gentle, steady, and almost invisible on any given day, yet powerful enough over time to carve canyons through solid rock. Your mind does not want to accept this. It craves the spectacular. It wants transformation to arrive overnight, wrapped in a single courageous moment. And when that moment fails to appear, the excuses slide in to fill the gap. I will begin when the timing improves. Today was too exhausting. Tomorrow, I will have more energy. Each excuse feels weightless in the moment, barely worth noticing, but stack them end to end across months and years, and they form the heaviest chain you will ever carry. Excuses do not announce themselves as thieves. They arrive dressed as reasonable explanations, and by the time you recognize what they stole, decades have vanished. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminded his students that no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. He urged patience and steady practice, trusting that the fruit would come in its own season. What he grasped, and what most people resist, is that the invisible work matters most. The morning no one witnessed where you chose 10 push-ups over 10 more minutes of sleep. The evening no one applauded where you read a single chapter instead of surrendering to the screen. The quiet Saturday where you spent 20 minutes on your own project while everyone else rested. None of those moments feel heroic while they are happening. Yet compounded across a year, 5 years, a decade, they produce results that no shortcut could ever replicate. Meanwhile, consistency does something even more valuable than building external results. It rebuilds your relationship with yourself. Every time you honor a small commitment you made to your own growth, you deposit a unit of self-trust into an account that has perhaps been empty for too long. And self-trust, once restored, becomes the foundation beneath every other ambition. When you know you can count on yourself to show up, doubt loses its power, fear softens, the opinions of skeptics fade into background noise, because the person in the mirror has proven through accumulated evidence that they follow through. So the practice is simple, though not easy. Choose one non-negotiable act each morning. Make it small enough that your excuses cannot overpower it. 5 minutes of writing, a short walk around the block, a single page of something worth reading. The size does not matter, the repetition does. Show up for it tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Let each morning become a quiet deposit of discipline rather than another withdrawal of regret. When the familiar whisper arrives, telling you that today does not count, that missing once will not matter, answer it with your feet on the floor and your body in motion. I choose to show up today, not because it is easy, but because who I become depends on what I repeat. You have walked with me through 7 truths that took years of stumbling and searching to uncover. Time owes you nothing. Your well-being is the foundation beneath every ambition you hold. The past is a teacher, not a prison. Your calling deserves your own mornings, not just the leftover hours after serving everyone else's agenda. Silence shields what matters most. The voices you permit into your mind shape the life you end up living. And above all, showing up daily with discipline will always outweigh the cleverest excuse your comfort zone can manufacture. Every single lesson points toward the same quiet truth. Tomorrow morning, when your eyes open and the world is still soft with possibility, you face a choice that no one else can make for you. Will you repeat the old patterns, or will you finally move differently? I cannot walk your road. I cannot force your hand. But I can tell you with every ounce of conviction I carry that you are not trapped. You are not behind. The sunrise waiting for you has no memory of yesterday's hesitation. It only asks what you will do with the fresh hours it brings. So rise before the noise arrives. Move before doubt has time to speak. And hold these words somewhere deep enough that they travel with you through the entire day. I grow stronger with every morning, and I refuse to waste what life has placed in my hands. Thank you sincerely for staying until the very end. Your presence here tells me something powerful about who you are becoming. Drop your favorite lesson in the comments below. Hit that like button if these words stirred something real inside you, and subscribe so we can continue this journey together. I will see you in the next one.